Hi everyone, Bernard here. I hope you're all well with a Citizen Channel presentation feature. I'm doing a Moments in Time today. It's a City Pass feature. And we're going to look at a period in time. We mess about, we have certain dates, we look at players, we look at matches. We're going to have a look at a little the Christmas New Year period, obviously a very busy period. We're going to go back to 1977-78. It's a very special time. I was at all these games that season. Fantastic. 8 days, 4 games. So 4 games in 8 days. So we whinge, don't we, about all the games we have to play now, but we've played far more. And don't forget, we played on some really dodgy pitches in those days as well. They weren't all the carpets that we get now. If you watch some of the games around Christmas time, if you go back and watch on YouTube, etc., you can see how the pitches used to dig up. So yeah, today we're going to look at a time in the season where all football clubs dread it, and it's sort of where league titles are sometimes claimed to be lost and won, isn't it? Certainly the Christmas, certainly Easter period, obviously, which we're not looking at today, but obviously Christmas is another very important one, isn't it? I mean, there's all these things about the team that's sort of bottom at Christmas gets relegated, all this sort of thing, all these sort of statistics they start throwing at you. Yeah, so it is a very, very vital time. Please, if you're new to this channel, please push that subscribe button, push the bell notification so you know when these vlogs are coming out. And please, if you're into movies or TV drama, do just check the playlist as well. I do little reviews on film and TV as well. So if that's of any interest to you, or you know someone that might interest, please point them in my direction. And please, any comments are always welcome. As I'm going through this, anything that interests you or you want to comment, if you were there and you remember, there's certainly a couple of games here we're going to talk about that I'm sure many of you watching would remember now. So please let me know in the comments. If you can't comment, if you haven't got time to comment, it's great to get views, but if you can just give us a thumbs up, that's fantastic. So I know you're out there. I enjoy doing these things, but it's nice to know you're watching and appreciating, and I hope we get entertained and informed, which is what I tried to do. Right, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. Well, we used to play Christmas Day back in the day, back in the 1800s, early 1900s, didn't we? Up to the night, I'm not sure what year we stopped doing that, but used to play on a Christmas Day. How amazing was that? You wouldn't get the players doing that now. But yeah, I never enjoyed Boxing Day games. I don't know what it is, whether you're at home or away. I never sort of fell in line. I always liked Christmas to be Christmas. I just liked to spend it with the family, especially when the kids were little and stuff like that. And going out to a match on Boxing Day just annoyed me, even as a teenager before I had commitments. So, but obviously a lot of people love it. I say it was never really my thing. I never really, and I still obviously, I always used to, as I sort of got a little bit older, I couldn't get so many away games. I was always hoping they were away from home, so I didn't have to disrupt my Christmas too much. But hey, there you go. That's my opinion. And so, but most fans do look forward to them. They do enjoy them. And so obviously it's a time where people have got time off work and they might get a match ticket as a gift, stuff like that. So between the 26th of December 1977, I just met my ex then. I just met my ex in the November before that. So I was still managing to get out to football, so it wasn't too bad. She hadn't, I hadn't been dragged, I hadn't been dragged to do DIY instead of watching City at that stage. I never was, so there you go. So between the 26th of December 77 and the 2nd of January 78, City would play the 4 games, 2 at home and 2 away. So that's... let's be honest, as I said, it's tough going. It was tough going for the players. It's tough going for the fans to get to these games as well. But that year, City really needed a boost, didn't they, by the Boxing Day game, 26th of December. Because what an 8-day period this would be. The crowds were averaging almost 43,000. The crowds were there at that stage. It's only United and Liverpool had better attendances at the grounds. And obviously the home fans will certainly be rewarded and the away fans will be rewarded. We'd come so close the season before, of course, finishing runners-up to Liverpool. And this season we'd signed Mike Shannon. He was the big headline signing of the season. And things had gone really well. So in the first 8 games, we'd won 5 and drawn 3. We're actually top of the table in early October. But by Boxing Day, when we're looking at this fixture list, it's all gone a bit dodgy. All the early gloss had worn off, and City sat 9 points behind leaders Nottingham Forest, and who would run away with it in the end. But we sat 9th as well. We're almost halfway in the league, 9 points behind leaders Forest, and that was after leading the table in early October. And don't forget, it's only 2 points for winning those days as well. So 9 points doesn't sound as bad now, does it? But obviously, if it's only 2 points for a win, that's 4.5 games behind, isn't it, as opposed to 3 now. as was normal, more or less in those sort of the 70s. I've commented on this before. Our away form wasn't brilliant. That's cost us many times, our away form. So again, it'd been fairly poor. So having 2 home games and 2 away games was quite a daunting proposition. So what treats were in store? Who came on the 26th of December? Well, most of you will now know. Most of you know about this, would know. We welcomed a team called Newcastle United. They were struggling 3 from the bottom. So they appeared to be fairly poor opposition, and a crowd of almost 46,000. Plenty of Geordies there, but I don't remember any real trouble at that game, especially under the circumstances. Well, I'll explain now. Was rewarded in more ways than one. Not only was it a comfortable 4-0 win, a Chewett hat-trick, and Mr. Brian Kidd, after it being 0-0 at half-time. But something happened at half-time, didn't it? Something happened, and I won't go into great detail on it today because it's another moment in time, obviously. But we will see the return of the legend, the hero, City, still our legend now, still a hero to a lot of us of my age anyway, Colin Bell, after 20 months out. This was his second return. He'd actually made an early return over a season before, but obviously he'd been clattered again by a certain Liverpool player who I won't name now. But yeah, in April '76, so he'd obviously had another 20 months or so on the sidelines, and I'll talk. Mr. Buck, Tony Buck, tells us about that, but we'll go into that a little bit at the end of this. So yeah, this was his second return, and hopes were high that this time he would sort of be back for good. There's no doubt, if you were there that day, it was one of the greatest ever days at Main Road, and there's been many days at Main Road. It not only inspired the players on the pitch, obviously the 4-0 win. I mean, we're not talking, all right, Newcastle weren't the greatest team, but we had sort of huffed and puffed before he came on. But the actual, not just the players, the crowd, I mean, the atmosphere was unbelievable, one of those unbelievable atmosphere nights. He'd only been a sub, so there was a possibility of him getting on, and Tony Buck will explain later. I'll read that out. But he was only a sub, but an injury to Paul Power in the first half meant he had to come out for the second half. And obviously Buck had commented, which we'll talk about again in a bit, that it was open to give him just 15-20 minutes at the end of the game. But obviously Paul Power's injury put pay to that. I mean, we'd all see. We could see. I mean, I saw him. I loved it. I mean, I could see he wasn't fully mobile. He wasn't quite as sharp. Similar in a way to the sad thing with Paul Lake, wasn't it? He wasn't. He came back and you could see he wasn't the normal. But you thought, well, you know, it's like a magic sponge, isn't it? He'll run it off. He'll be fine in a few games. We're back to the old Colin Bell, but. Yeah, he put everything in and inspired the team to that great victory. Kevin, our supporter at the time, they did a thing for the one of the City magazines years ago, and he actually summarised the feeling of us all that night. I'm just reading from Mr. Kevin Howe's comments. It was the beginning of the second half that will stick with me until my dying day. 10 City players ran out onto the pitch, not 11. Would it be Bell? Well, yeah, he was sub. He emerged from the tunnel onto the pitch. The cheer that followed him was enormous. I mean, to call it a cheer is understating it, to be honest with you. I think even the Newcastle fans joined him. The cheer that followed him was enormous. All around the ground, grown men cried. I'd never seen grown men cry before. Even my dad had tears in his eyes. Well, I'll admit I cried that night. The rest of the match followed at a breakneck pace with expectation for every pass to and from Bell for a goal. I saw the comeback of one of the greatest City players of all time, yeah. So he just reflects what we all said. Oh, he didn't score that game, but there you go. He didn't score for a few games on his comeback, but it was his inspiration, wasn't it? That sort of led us to that, and that will be another moment in time. I'm sure one day I'll talk about obviously that. And I only realised with Dr. Gary James a few weeks back, he did comment that it was his second comeback he had made. I'd forgotten his first comeback. I was there around there for that as well. But yeah, this was his second comeback. But hey, it was a night none of us will ever forget. Anyway, the day after, trip up to the northeast, and a game versus Middlesbrough, so not as far perhaps as Newcastle and Sunderland. And although Borough were in the bottom half of the table, these were the sort of games City had been losing away from home. We haven't been doing very well. As I said, our away form was terrible. But Bell played again. Bell was in the starting lineup this time, even though he wasn't in the programme lineups on the back. Don't forget the printing of these. Obviously, is probably a lag of 10 to 14 days. So there was nothing in any of these programmes about Colin Bell playing. But we felt the bounce bell bounce effect, didn't we? We kept a clean sheet and a relatively comfortable 2-0 win at Middlesbrough. Very welcome win from Hartford and Owen scoring the goals. And then it was back to Main Road on New Year's Eve. Another break. I don't mind New Year's Eve so much because I'm not a New Year's person, so that doesn't bother me, New Year's games. But it's back to Main Road, New Year's Eve. Another 46,000 plus crowd for the visit of Aston Villa. They sat mid-table, Aston Villa, but they had a good record away from home, so it wasn't going to be an easy game. And all the talk in the match programme was Match Magazine was looking back at what had happened, obviously, in 1977 and looking forward to 1978. Again, no images of Colin Bell's comeback or anything like that because of this printer thing. You know, the stuff had to be at the printers by a certain time. But they did manage to get a welcome back half page, which I've got an image of there, a welcome back half page image, which obviously not a game he'd played recently from an old game, but so they did manage to squeeze that into the programme at the last minute. Another clean sheet against Villa. I rewatched the highlights of this on YouTube. These games, most of these games are available. You want to try and dig these out. I'll put a couple of links as well for these. So another clean sheet. Some great wing play on that, on a cutting up pitch. And this is running about the pitches. The Main Road pitch was really cutting up at the time. And it was another 2-0 win. Another 2-0 win with Kidd and Barnes at the score sheet that day. And then that was New Year's Eve, and arguably the last of the 4 Christmas New Year. We won 3 out of 3. Probably was the easiest with the visit to Filbert Street. In theory, Leicester were actually bottom of the league at that stage, bottom of the first division, so they weren't doing very, very well. But they were quite confident because they'd had a good record against City in recent seasons. So it ended up, it was a tough game. I mean, again, we didn't let any goals in, but we only squeezed one in and got a Gary Owen penalty. There's a thing on 70 minutes saw us beat Leicester 1-0. So there you go, 4 games in 8 games. And now, I mean, the new City probably won a load of them, but not too often that happened in the past, did it? There were 4 Colin Bell-inspired games, in my opinion. 4 wins. It took us up to 5th, all right. We hadn't shut it down that much. We closed the gap to Forest, was now 7 points instead of 9. And this good form actually did continue away from the league, because obviously we got another game that's sort of gone down in City folklore on the 7th of January, just a few days later. Obviously it's not part of the Christmas period as such, but it's a difficult FA Cup game. We travelled over to Ellen Road for the tricky FA Cup game against Leeds United, and obviously all of us there and not there, have you ever seen the images of that one on YouTube? Please, if you've never watched that, go back and watch that. It's absolutely amazing. Pitch invasions, trouble in the stands, thousands of City fans all over the place being walked out of. There's even some City fans in the Leeds Cop having a go, and then obviously got took out by the police. So it was kicking off everywhere, on and off the pitch, and obviously we had the pitch invasion later on. Many Leeds fans commented that it was the biggest ever away following they'd ever seen at Ellen Road, and absolutely thousands of them, not just in the City section. City fans were all over the place. We had a Leeds player punch up as well as a pitch invasion. Obviously the mounted police, referee pleading for fans, and yeah, please watch that. I will put a link on this on YouTube, so please have a look at that if you get. So anyway, that was another memorable day. Obviously Mr. Bell was playing for us on that day as well, and we managed to win that. So the good form continued, didn't it? Yeah, as I was saying, in his match programme notes for the West Ham United game, which was on the 14th of January, and obviously we just leave it to Tony Buck to comment on the Colin Bell thing now, because obviously the printers are caught up now, and I'll just read out what Tony Buck said. It would be wrong to attribute the upswing in our fortunes to any one individual, but there is no question that the return of Colin Bell to the first team has been the boost that we needed. Psychologically, it has worked wonders for everyone. His presence after such a long wait for his recovery following the awful injury has given us the quality and experience that you would normally only get by going out and spending a fortune in the transfer market. Colin's return had coincided with a bounce back to form by several individuals in the team, and I'm sure that the events are related. And 2 central defenders, Tommy Booth, Dave Watson, have assumed the command they are known for. Asa Hartford and Gary Owen have hit their best games in style, while Dennis Stewart has been in explosive form in attack. Suddenly it's all been clicking. 4 league victories and the FA Cup success as Leeds last Saturday have given a huge tonic for morale. There was suggested in my Match magazine notes in Boxing Day I felt confident of reversing the Leeds score anyway. So he was sort of hinting at, it wasn't just Colin Bell. He knew it was going to happen. He knew this was bounce back was going to happen, whether it was Colin Bell was there or not. He goes on to say about Colin Bell. Colin Bell's resumption was even earlier than it had been scheduled after the failure of his comeback in April 1976, which just lasted only 4 games. We were determined not to be rushed into bringing him back, even though the media kept us under pressure to do so. My plans have been to give him a 20-minute run at the end of the Boxing Day match against Newcastle, and for the next few games to build him up in the same manner by bringing him on as sub for the closing stages. An injury to Paul Power in the first half forced my hand against Newcastle, and Colin went into the heat of battle and emerged in time in fine fettle. He had no hesitation in saying he was fit enough for the match the following day at Middlesbrough. It wasn't planned that way, it happened. There was no better way for Colin to prove his really than to complete such a packed holiday programme with no repercussions. He completed 3.5 games within 1 week, and I see no reason why he should miss that out on any other games for the rest of the campaign. It had been apparent in his last 6 matches for the reserves that his old touch was returning. All the clever flicks and his trademark when in peak form were showing in the Central League fixtures in November and early December, and it's his class and experience that we are delighted to be able to call upon once more for the first team. We have so sorely missed it since November 1975 when the injury first happened. So yeah, I mean, that's Mr. Tony Butt, the manager, obviously talking about Colin Bell and the inspired performances over this Christmas and New Year. I'm a big believer in psychology, both off the pitch and on the pitch, and how it affects football matches. And there's no doubt in my mind that it had a definite effect that Christmas and New Year on City, who were sort of plodding along at the time. And I think the impact of Colin Bell can't be understated, to be honest with you. Okay, we'd go out. Okay, it would come to a saddening, juddering end. Obviously, we'd go out of the FA Cup at the end of January, but no shame in that. We lost to the league leaders, Notts Forest, by the end of January. We'd go out in the League Cup quarter-finals to Arsenal. So again, not great, but Colin Bell would feature up to the end of March before, sadly, problems again. Sort of he missed some, and then he did play again before the end of the season, but obviously that's another story, isn't it? Sadly, we wouldn't close the gap on Forest. We'd eventually finish 4th, which was respectable, but a good 12 points behind Forest, and they had the sort of run. They had a runaway season. Forest, I think I mentioned it earlier. They did really well. That's no one really got that close to them. They sort of ran away with it that season, but the league run of 4 wins over Christmas will turn into 7. So before we actually ended up a draw and then started losing some games, but we drew 8 out of the last 15, and that more or less put paid to our title challenge. But 4th place was okay. But let's face it, who could forget? And I was there, thankfully, to witness those magnificent 8 days of City wins, and of course the return of a legend. Thanks for joining me for this look back at Christmas and New Year 1977 and 78. Let me know in the comments any memories you have. 4 games, 8 days, 4 wins. Colin Bell, a Manchester City history. Manchester City moment in time. Please check my links on screen. If you follow me or friend me on Facebook and Twitter, I do check every couple of days, and I follow and friend everyone back on there. And you can check out my website, my day job, so I can do these little vlogs for you and enjoy doing them. But obviously I've got to pay the bills as well. If you can have a look on there, that'll be fantastic. MovieGameNostalgia.com for old rare DVDs, movie posters from the 90s and 2000s, and board games on there as well. That'd be absolutely superb. And as I said, if you're interested in film and TV, and there's even movie quizzes. I've got some quizzes on there as well. Please check the playlist for my movie and TV stuff as well. That'll be fantastic. Right, thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoy that. Let me know in the comments what you think and what your memories. As I say, I'll probably do a special on Colin Bell at some stage, the injury and the comebacks, etc. But yeah, say with that, in the space of how many days, what if you take into that, and then just think of the Leeds game in the FA Cup. I mean, you're talking 2 classic City games that have gone down in folklore there in the space of about 12 or 13 days. I mean, over Christmas and New Year 1977, 78. I mean, the Leeds game is is a moments in time in itself, and perhaps we'll do one of them one day as well. Anyway, thanks for watching. What we're going to do with yesterday, have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your families. More importantly, look after each other. Until we meet again on the Citizen channel, Bird is saying goodbye for now. Thanks for watching.